Hey there friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and while I've been absolutely loving Helldivers 2 so far, the game is a blast to play. I do have some gripes with some of my fellow Helldivers out there because there are some things that people are doing that just don't make a lot of sense to me. And while you should definitely play this game however you want to play it, there's some things to keep in mind that might make the game easier and more enjoyable for you and your fellow Helldivers that you're playing with. So, first and foremost, if you have a minor objective that is using a stratagem or weapon that isn't the best, you can crank down the difficulty and do it very quickly in one single mission without having to be frustrated because you're unable to get the kills that you want to. If you are playing solo, you can complete those types of minor orders much easier as well. And that's something to keep in mind because I've seen folks jump into missions at harder difficulty, suicide and above, and try to use an anti-material rifle to get 50 kills, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. There's too many heavy, tanky enemies that aren't going to be killed with one single shot, so you're going to have to spend a lot of ammunition. You're going to be less efficient with your stratagems, and you're also going to be frustrating your teammates because you're hyper focused on getting these kills instead of doing the objectives. Now, if you're with a group of teammates who are understandable with something like this and playing around it, that's fine. But if you're with randoms and you're trying to complete missions on those harder difficulties, you're better off doing the minor order on an easier difficulty and then jumping in with those other teammates, because it'll just make life a lot easier, it'll go a lot faster, and it will probably be significantly better for your mindset because you're not getting frustrated because you just can't get kills. Other people are killing the enemies too fast, or the enemies are tanking all of the damage you're trying to do. Another thing, samples are shared across the team. I don't know where some people think that the person carrying the samples is the only one that gets to extract with them, but that is not the case whatsoever. I've seen it on TikTok where people will literally kill their fellow Helldivers, pick up the samples to extract, and it just is something that just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not being a good team player, and ultimately it has no bearing on how many rewards you actually have, and everyone gets less rewards because you possibly extract with less people if you do it before the ship leaves. So all of that being said, you're going to want to ensure that you pick up as many of the samples as possible, but don't fight over them. There's no reason for one player to hoard them unless they absolutely want to and it makes life easier for your team. But yeah, I just saw some of that on TikTok and I was blown away that people think they have to fight over the samples. It seems pretty easy. The UI tells you that everybody gets them. Everybody gets a notice when you pick them up. So that's definitely something to remember for sure. Another thing that I think a lot of people don't really pay attention to is that if you complete the main objective and you don't extract, you still get a lot of the rewards. You still complete the mission, so you get all of the medals and everything. Whereas if you focus on the side missions and then you cause a lot of deaths, if you waste a lot of lives, now you're scrambling trying to get the main mission done and you just don't have a lot of revives and it becomes panic mode for a lot of players. I've seen it happen far too often, and it's something that can be avoided if you simply focus on the main objectives first and then you can go do the side stuff, because even if you don't extract at that point, even if only one player extracts at that point, you still get a bunch of the rewards, and it just makes more sense to do the main objectives first. Now, if you have a single side objective on the way to a main objective, sure, but you're going to want to complete it as a squad, because on those higher difficulties, too often the reason that teams fail is because you split up. You try to do a bunch of the side objectives at one time, or you're trying to do the side objectives on your own. And so all of that is something that I feel like people just don't keep in mind. They'll burn through lives, and while you can still complete the missions while you've used up a lot of the respawns, it can also be a very tricky situation, because I've had it with suicide and above difficulties where we only have 4 respawns and it's getting to the end and we call in the drop ship. Now all of a sudden somebody dies and you respawn them. And now all of a sudden there's a cooldown. So you don't get to revive the other player that dies next, and they don't get to extract with the team. Or you are scrambling to get the main mission done and everybody is trying to do the objective, but you're swarmed by enemies and now you don't actually finish it because after you get swarmed by enemies, everyone starts scrambling around trying to stay alive and you don't have any revives left and it's just pure panic mode. I think if you complete the main objectives first, you'll be in a much better spot to be more comfortable trying to do the side stuff from that point on. And that's just something that I think a lot of people would really want to focus on within the game. Now, otherwise, the game is meant to be enjoyed however you want to play it. There are easier missions, there are harder missions, and there are good stratagems, there are bad stratagems, there are stratagems that are useful in certain situations and not others, and at the end of the day you should be just having fun with the game as much as possible. I implore more people to use the in-game chat if at all possible. I think it is very helpful, especially if you're playing with randoms, and I think it can be a lot of fun. You can really either role play with your fellow randoms, you can jump into the game and just talk trash to them as a throwaway Helldiver who's trying to stay alive in this chaotic experience. But ultimately, the game is better off if you're talking and having a good time with your fellow friends. And the game is significantly better in co-op, in my personal opinion. And being able to talk with randoms and really have a good time and laugh over some nonsense is where the game really shines. You can make a ton of friends in this game, and I've already made friends with fellow randoms, fellow Helldivers who are trying to complete objectives on higher difficulties, and everything goes to shit, but you still have an absolute blast trying to do that. So ultimately, I really feel like some of this stuff will be helpful, and we're seeing a heavy influx of new Helldivers every single day. They increased the maximum concurrence to 800,000 for this weekend, and still there's a queue for people waiting to get in. So that's absolutely insane, and I want everyone to be kind and help out their fellow Helldivers if at all possible, because this game is meant to be enjoyed together. We are fighting against the bugs, we're fighting against the automatons, and we want to complete these missions and really push back those forces as much as possible, and some of the things I mentioned today will help you do so. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more Helldivers 2 content from me going forward, definitely hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously, shows that you are interested in seeing more Helldivers from me on the channel. Like I mentioned, my name is Jopa. Have a good one, and I will catch you all later.